World War II ended in fire. The Cold War began in silence. There were no trenches, no front lines, only buttons, only countdowns, two sides, two flags, and one shared secret. If either one moved, the world ended. America dropped the bomb. Russia built their own. And from that day forward, everyone lived in crosshairs. Children hid under desks. Civilians memorized fallout shelters. Presidents rehearsed the end of humanity by phone. Wars were fought with cameras and radio waves and whispers in alleyways. Dissent vanished in Moscow, in Washington, in your neighbor's house. The wall went up in Berlin, so no one would need to ask, which side are you on? Propaganda became language. Fear became policy. And silence became survival. The Cold War never exploded. It just waited until one flag fell and the world exhaled. For the first time in 50 years, follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. 73 CE, the last of the Jewish rebels fled to a stone fortress in the sky, Masada. The Romans followed. They didn't storm the gates. They built a mountain, a siege ramp rising foot by foot, day by day, until the sky itself felt like it was closing in. Inside Masada, 960 men, women, and children watched. They sharpened blades. They whispered prayers. And they waited for the end. Their leader, Eleazar, drew no line. He simply said, "We will not be paraded. We will not be chained. We will die as free people." The Romans reached the top, but the rebels were gone. Fathers buried families, brothers held brothers. The last man died with fire at his feet. There were no victors, only ash, only silence, and a legend that still echoes from the stone. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. After World War II ended, the United States made a decision not to build bombs, but to break minds. The Soviets had interrogation, the Chinese had indoctrination. So America asked, what do we have? The answer was MK Ultra. They tested LSD on patients who never gave consent. They hypnotized soldiers. They sleep-deprived prisoners. They erased names, and then they erased thoughts. College students, psychiatric patients, volunteers who didn't know they'd volunteered. Some forgot who they were. Some never came back. One jumped from a window. His file called it suicide. They filmed it, filed it, and burned it. The public never voted for this. Congress never approved it. But the minds were broken anyway. By 1973, they shredded what they could. What they missed still floats in black ink. A warning or a blueprint. This wasn't science. It was fear with funding. It was control as a cure. This is what war does after the fighting stops. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. February 13th, 1945. The war was nearly over, but Dresden was just beginning. They said it was a military target, but Dresden wasn't a fortress. It was art. It was music. It was a place people fled to be safe. Then the sirens started. Not screaming, singing. Everyone moved underground. They didn't know the fire was coming from the sky. British bombers came first, then the Americans, then fire. Not explosions, a firestorm. So hot the oxygen burned. So fast, the wind pulled people out of buildings and into flame. There was no shelter. The water evaporated. The stone melted. Basements turned into ovens. Children turned to smoke. And then there was silence. By morning, Dresden was ash. The city had no weapons, only people, and history, and heat. Some called it justice. Others called it revenge. But everyone remembered the smell. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. First came the void, a broken Iraq, a burning Syria, 1,000 factions, no direction. Then came the flag, black, unapologetic, no nation, just belief. ISIS didn't invent terror, they inherited it from Al-Qaeda, from Osama bin Laden, from his call for a war against the Crusaders. But they weren't fighting in caves. They were building cities, a caliphate, a state with law and cameras. They filmed executions like films, trained children like soldiers, replaced prayer with punishment, replaced school books with ideology. Every bullet was a lesson, every beheading a message, every slogan a ritual. They taxed, they governed, they franchised. It wasn't random, it was designed. When the cities fell, the servers stayed. When the soldiers died, the footage lived. And now, long after the black flag was torn down, the blueprint still circulates, online, in minds, in silence. Because ISIS was never just a group. It was a model, a system, a future someone is still watching. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. Germany lost the First World War, and it didn't take it well. Humiliation turned into hunger. Hunger turned into hatred, and hatred needed a face. Then came a voice. It didn't promise food. It promised greatness. The rallies began. The cameras rolled. The papers obeyed. And a ministry of propaganda told an entire country what to see. Not truth. Image. Not freedom. Obedience. One man became a myth became a nation, and a nation became a machine. They blamed the Jews, then the books, then the silence. The world watched speeches, but behind every stage was a prison, behind every parade, a grave. They didn't conquer with tanks. They conquered with film, with fear, with the lie that became law. And by the time anyone looked behind the curtain, the stage was already burning. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. He sent thousands of bombs across the channel and thought he could make Britain kneel. The Blitzkrieg had crushed Poland, crushed France. Now, Hitler turned his eyes to the skies. He unleashed the Luftwaffe, thousands of bombers, and dive bombers designed to scream, to break the resolve of the enemy. He thought panic would do what soldiers could not, that fire and fear could force surrender. But Winston Churchill had already seen the flames and decided to stand in them. He used speeches like shields. He turned radio waves into rallying cries. And he turned civilians into soldiers by giving them something to believe in. Radar, fighter pilots, civil defense. Psychology met strategy. Children slept underground. Fires raged across London. But the people refused to break, and Churchill rose to the microphone. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. The bombers came, and were turned away. The Battle of Britain wasn't just fought in the air, it was fought in the mind. Terror failed, because courage didn't. Battle of Britain, Blitzkrieg versus Backbone. He was the boy who watched Rome burn. He became the man who made Carthage bleed. Scipio Africanus didn't fight Hannibal in the Alps. He waited, he studied, he learned. And when the time came, he didn't match Hannibal's rage. He buried it under silence. Hannibal had terrorized Rome for over a decade, crushed it at Cannae, outwitted every general they sent. But at Zama, he met someone raised in his shadow, a mind sharpened by fear, by humiliation, by purpose. Scipio didn't want to win the war. He wanted to end the myth. And when Hannibal fell, so did the empire behind him. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. He wasn't born to rule. He was born to survive a palace of fire. His father was a king. His mother, a sorceress in the eyes of many. From the moment he could walk, he was told one of them was a god. And the other could be worse. He grew up in whispers. His parents fought with knives in their voices. Philip taught him to conquer. Olympias taught him to fear. He tamed Bucephalus at 12, but no one noticed the bruises he carried home. He was taught to command, not to feel, to endure, not to question. When Philip remarried, Alexander left the court. When Philip was assassinated, he returned as a king, but also as a son with something to prove. He burned Thebes to the ground, to remind Greece who ruled now. He studied under Aristotle, but listened more to his mother's dreams. He believed in omens, and when a bird fell dead at his feet, he believed it spoke. He conquered Persia not just for empire, but for immortality. He said he wanted to see the edge of the world, but what he really wanted was to never be forgotten. He called himself son of Zeus, because being son of Philip wasn't enough. He led his men through deserts, mountains, jungles, and when they begged to go home, he threatened to march without them. He killed Clitus, not for disobedience, but because Clitus reminded him he was still human. He executed philosophers for asking questions. He made priests kneel. He made gods answer. And when his body began to fail him, swollen liver, sun fever, poison, he whispered to the walls, "Who will take my place?" No one answered. Not his wife, not his generals, not his gods. He died in silence. His empire died with him. They still call him great. But he was never chasing conquest. He was running. From the boy in the palace who was never safe. Alexander the Great, tyrant unmasked. In 480 BC, at the narrow pass of Thermopylae, one of the most legendary battles in history took place. King Leonidas the Ruler of Sparta, with just 300 elite warriors, faced the might of King Xerxes I's Persian Empire. The Persian forces, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, were on a relentless campaign to conquer Greece. With the fate of the Greek world hanging in the balance, the 300 Spartans made their stand at this narrow gateway, a strategic choke point where the strength of the Persian army would be nullified by the Spartan warriors' unrivaled discipline. The Spartans, known for their brutal training and unflinching loyalty to their king, were more than soldiers. They were a symbol of military excellence. Leonidas, a king of rare vision and courage, led his warriors with unwavering resolve. He knew that the battle was not just one of weapons, but one of psychology, where the might of the Persian army could be undermined by Spartan bravery and tactical genius. The Spartans stood their ground, knowing full well the odds were stacked against them, but their courage would define history. As Xerxes the Maya approached with his massive army, he initially believed that his overwhelming numbers would break the Spartans' resolve. His immortals, elite soldiers, clad in the finest armor, led the charge, followed by an endless procession of infantry, cavalry, and war elephants. However, the Persian king underestimated the strength of the Spartan spirit. Despite the constant pressure from the advancing Persian forces, Leonidas and his men held their ground, forming an unbreakable shield wall. The psychological warfare between the two commanders became apparent. Xerxes, a king accustomed to rapid victories, grew frustrated as the battle wore on, and the Spartans showed no signs of yielding. For days, the Spartan warriors fought valiantly, repelling wave after wave of Persian attacks. Leonidas, ever steadfast, held his ground, his leadership bolstering the confidence of his men. The Persian forces were not accustomed to this level of resistance. They had swept through lands with ease, only to be stopped by a mere fraction of their number. The battle, at first perceived as a mere formality, began to take on a deeper meaning, a clash between East and West, between the overwhelming power of Persia and the defiance of the Greek spirit. Despite the devastating onslaught, the Spartans never wavered. The psychological tactics employed by Leonidas, such as his calculated defiance and leadership, made the Spartans appear invincible in the eyes of the Persian forces. Meanwhile, Xerxes, towering above the battlefield, found himself watching in disbelief. The longer the battle raged, the more Xerxes' confidence began to fade, realizing that the outcome would not be as simple as he had hoped. However, the tide of battle eventually turned against the 300 Spartans. Despite their heroic efforts, the Greek forces were betrayed. A traitor revealed a secret path to the Persian army, allowing them to surround Leonidas and his warriors. With his fate sealed, Leonidas, ever the leader, refused to retreat, choosing to stand and fight to the end. Leonidas's death became a symbol of ultimate sacrifice. He and his warriors died on the battlefield, but their legacy would live on forever, inspiring generations of warriors with the spirit of sacrifice and heroism. The Battle of Thermopylae is remembered not for the tactical loss, but for the immense psychological impact it had on both the Greek and Persian forces. Though they were defeated, the Spartans' courage ignited the Greek resistance, leading to future victories. Leonidas and his men's selfless stand at Thermopylae inspired not only the Greeks, but also the entire Western world, showing that even in the face of overwhelming odds, bravery, discipline, and leadership could turn the tide of history. Their sacrifice proved that true strength lies not in the number of men, but in the spirit of those who fight for a cause greater than themselves. Thermopylae became an enduring symbol of courage, and Leonidas's name would echo through history as a testament to the power of the human spirit in battle. In 525 BCE, at the gateway to Egypt, terror did not arrive on horseback. It arrived on paws. Cambyses II, king of Persia, understood one truth: to break a man, you must break his belief. So when his army reached Pelusium, they carried shields, and painted on each one was a cat. To the Egyptians, cats were sacred, symbols of life, gods in fur, and now they were weapons. Pharaoh Psamtik watched from the walls as his archers refused to shoot, not out of fear of Persia, but fear of the gods they might strike. The Persians didn't win with swords. They won with silence, with hesitation, with psychological war. Egypt surrendered not to blood, but to blasphemy. And on that day, the gods of Egypt were used to destroy it. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more forgotten battles and the minds behind them. In 1223, Mongol generals Jabi and Subutai led a force of approximately 20,000 soldiers on a strategic expedition that would alter the course of Eastern European history. Their journey began with a series of calculated raids across the Caucasus Mountains, targeting key cities such as Rey, Zanjan, and Kazvin. These operations not only demonstrated the Mongol military's reach, but also served as a prelude to their larger ambitions in the region. Advancing further, Jabi and Subutai encountered a coalition of Russian princes and their Cuman allies near the Kalka River. The Allied forces, eager to confront the Mongol threat, pursued them across the steppe. The Mongols, employing their renowned tactic of feigned retreats, lured the pursuing allies into a vulnerable position. This strategy exploited the allies' overconfidence and lack of coordination, leading them into a trap where they were encircled and decisively defeated. The aftermath of the battle was devastating for the Rus forces. Historical accounts suggest that only 1 in every 10 soldiers survived. Among the casualties were several prominent princes, including Mstislav II of Chernigov and his son, highlighting the significant loss of leadership within the Rus' principalities. This engagement marked the first significant Mongol military action in Europe, serving as a harbinger of the Mongol Empire's expansive reach. It exposed the vulnerabilities of the fragmented Russ's principalities and demonstrated the effectiveness of Mongol military strategies, particularly their psychological warfare tactics. The battle's legacy influenced the political and military landscape of the region, paving the way for subsequent Mongol invasions. Delve into history's epic battles and the minds behind them. Subscribe to Mindcraft Dark Psychology. In 1947, the British left India, but first they drew a line. They called it independence, but it wasn't freedom. It was division. One country became two. India, Pakistan, based not on geography, but on faith. The man who drew the border never stepped foot on it. He had 35 days to divide 400 million people, so they used census data, old maps, and guesswork. Families woke up in the wrong country. Neighbors became strangers. Friends became enemies. Trains full of refugees arrived empty. Camps overflowed. Rivers turned red. Over 1 million died. 15 million were displaced. And the world called it necessary. But some say it was by design. Better to have India and Pakistan fight each other than look back at the empire that broke them both. They divided the land, then blamed the people for the blood. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. In 1971, East Pakistan voted, overwhelmingly, democratically, for independence. West Pakistan said no, then sent tanks. Operation Searchlight began, not against armies, but against students, teachers, doctors, journalists. Dhaka University burned. So did villages. So did names. The list was clear. Intellectuals first, women next, then anyone who stayed behind. They called it a crackdown. It was a blueprint. 10 million fled to India, 1 million died, and the world barely flinched. In December, the Mukti Bahini rose. India joined. The war ended, but the wounds didn't. Bangladesh was born, not with celebration, but with silence and graves. This wasn't just a war, it was a cleansing. They tried to erase a people and created a country. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. In the 1970s, Iran looked like the future. Neon lights, women in miniskirts, Western music on cassette. Tehran was Paris in the desert. But far away, in exile, another voice was recording a different kind of cassette. Ayatollah Khomeini didn't shout. He whispered. He didn't wave flags. He mailed tapes. They crossed borders, crossed classes, entered homes, entered heads. He said Islam had been replaced, that the Shah was a fraud, that Iran was ready to return, not to freedom, to order. And people listened, not because of poverty, not because of faith, because his voice filled the silence the Shah left behind. By 1979, the music had stopped, the lights had gone out, and the man with the microphone had returned. The crowds cheered, the West watched, and the future closed like a gate. He didn't fire a shot, he didn't lead an army, he just recorded. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. In the autumn of 331 BCE, the vast plains of Gaugamela, near present-day Erbil in Iraq, became the backdrop for a historic confrontation between two formidable leaders, Alexander the Great of Macedonia and King Darius III of Persia. Darius, commanding an army that vastly outnumbered Alexander's forces, meticulously arranged his troops to exploit their numerical superiority. He positioned his elite infantry at the center, flanked by a formidable cavalry on both wings, and deployed scythe chariots and war elephants to disrupt the enemy lines. Alexander, renowned for his tactical brilliance, responded with a strategy that would become a textbook example of military genius. He arranged his forces with the phalanx at the center, companion cavalry on the right wing, and allied Greek cavalry on the left. Anticipating Darius's tactics, Alexander deliberately created a gap in his center, enticing the Persian cavalry to exploit it. This maneuver drew the Persian cavalry away from their supporting infantry, setting the stage for a decisive strike. As the battle unfolded, Darius initiated an assault with his scythed chariots, aiming to penetrate the Macedonian lines. However, Alexander's forces, anticipating this move, skillfully opened their ranks, allowing the chariots to pass through harmlessly and neutralizing a significant portion of Darius's initial assault. Seizing the opportunity, Alexander led a bold charge with his companion cavalry, exploiting the gap he had created in the Persian lines. This maneuver struck at the heart of Darius's forces, causing confusion and panic. The Persian king, witnessing the disarray and fearing for his life, retreated from the battlefield, abandoning his army. The sudden withdrawal of Darius led to the collapse of the Persian command structure. Leaderless, the Persian forces were routed, resulting in a decisive victory for Alexander. This triumph not only demonstrated Alexander's military genius, but also paved the way for the fall of the Persian Empire and the spread of Greek culture across Asia. At Mindcraft Dark History, we delve into the minds behind history's most significant battles. Join us as we explore the strategies, decisions, and personalities that shaped our world. Subscribe now and embark on a journey through the annals of time. In the blistering heat of January 1879, at a remote mission station in the British colony of Natal, a storm was brewing. Rorke's Drift, a small supply post defended by just over 150 British soldiers, found itself in the path of a Zulu force over 4,000 strong. Fresh from their devastating victory at Isandlwana, the Zulu warriors, fearless and organized, marched with deadly precision. Inside the station, Lieutenants John Chard and Gonville Bromhead prepared for annihilation. They weren't seasoned veterans. They were engineers, clerks, and privates turned barricade builders overnight. With shaking hands, they stacked mealie bags and crates, turning a chapel and hospital into a fortress of desperation. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for control, for sanity, for something to hold on to in the face of death. As the first war chants echoed across the plains, the ground seemed to tremble. The Zulus charged, wave after wave, armed with assegais and cowhide shields, determined to break the thin red line. Martini Henry rifles answered back, filling the air with smoke, blood, and screams. When the hospital caught fire, wounded men crawled through smoke and flame, dragged to safety by their brothers in arms. By nightfall, the station was hell on earth. Torches lit twisted shadows on the walls, and the cries of the wounded never stopped. Men like Private Hook, once accused of cowardice, fought like demons. Chard and Bromhead led from the front, exhausted, blistered, blood-stained, their faces carved by fear and defiance. And then, silence. At dawn, the Zulu impi stood still. They looked once more upon the station, then turned and vanished. The British had held. But what they kept was more than just ground. They kept their lives and lost their innocence. Rorke's Drift wasn't a victory. It was a reckoning. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. It began as a church. Then it became a movement. Then it moved into the jungle. Jim Jones promised freedom, equality, utopia. He called it Jonestown. They left America to escape it. What they found was a man with a microphone, and 900 people too tired to question him. He didn't scream. He didn't threaten. He just spoke. And when he spoke, they listened. He burned photos of their past. He gave them drills in the night, cups in the dark, tests of loyalty disguised as warnings. Then, one day, it wasn't a drill. A congressman came, and he didn't leave. And Jim Jones said, "Now they'll come for us. Drink, obey, die." They lined up. Children first, then elders, then everyone else. No one ran, no one screamed, because by then, no one believed they had a choice. 9 people died that day. Not because they wanted to, because they were told to. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. It didn't begin with machetes. It began with measurements. In the 1930s, Belgian colonizers came to Rwanda. They brought rulers. They measured foreheads, nose width, skull shape, and they used those numbers to divide a people: Hutu, Tutsi, Twa. They printed identity cards. They made those labels law. And then they left. The cards stayed. Decades later, a plane exploded and a radio turned on. The voice said, "They are cockroaches. Find them. Kill them." And people listened. Neighbors turned on neighbors. Teachers turned on students. Churches turned into graves. The world watched and walked away. 800,000 died in 100 days, not because of hatred, but because of classification, because of obedience, because someone said who was human and who was not. It wasn't the machete, it was the microphone, and the system that taught people who to aim it at. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. June 6, 1944. Dawn breaks over the English Channel. The sea is quiet, but the shore is waiting. They called it D-Day. But this is not a strategy. This is the first hour. Inside the landing craft, men whisper prayers. Others are silent, staring at a wall of water and wire. Their uniforms are soaked. Their rifles are heavy. Their faces are 19. The ramp drops, and the beach opens its mouth. The first wave is cut down before they reach sand. Machine guns, mortars, shrapnel. Some try to swim. Others try to run. Most just sink. Those who crawl forward find no shelter, only craters, barbed wire, and the remains of the last man who tried. Orders still come. Advance. But no one's voice carries through the smoke. A few make it to the dunes. They take a bunker. They reload. They move again. The beach behind them is red. The water is still moving, and new boats are coming. This is the first hour, and no one remembers how long it felt. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. London, 1888. Fog chokes the alleys, gas lamps flicker, and death walks in silence. They called him Jack the Ripper, but no one ever saw his face. He struck only at night, fast, precise, vanishing before the scream even echoed. The women of Whitechapel had nothing except fear. And still, they walked the same cold streets because they had no choice. The bodies were found torn open, the police baffled. The killer left no prints, only notes. Notes soaked in blood, signed from hell. Every man became a suspect, every shadow a warning. The newspapers called him a demon. The people called him unstoppable. He watched from rooftops, from the fog, from behind your shoulder. He can be a doctor, a noble, the man beside you at the pub, and then nothing. He disappeared. No arrest, no justice, only myth. Jack the Ripper wasn't just a man. He was fear itself, and fear never dies. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic crimes and the minds behind them. In 1953, he attacked a barracks with fewer men than bullets. He lost. He was arrested. He smiled anyway. In court, he said, "History will absolve me." It did. 6 years later, he walked into Havana, not as a prisoner, but as a revolution. They called him a dictator, a rebel, a threat. He called himself a survivor. The CIA tried to kill him. The US tried to invade him. The Soviets tried to use him. He outlasted all of them. In 1962, the world came to the edge of fire, 59 minutes from nuclear war, and Cuba, his Cuba, was the trigger. He didn't blink. He didn't bend. He wasn't even in the room. When the missiles left, he stayed. The world kept moving. But the island didn't bow, and neither did the man who led it. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. November 11th, 1918. At 5:10 a.m., the armistice was signed. The war was over, but not yet. The fighting would stop at exactly 11 a.m. Everyone knew it, and still, the orders came. Attack, advance, take that hill, clear that trench. They had 6 hours left, and they were told to use them. American, British, French, they followed orders. Because that's what war teaches you. German gunners knew the war was over. They fired anyway. Because that's what war does to you. Men died at 10:20, 10:40, 10:58. One man was shot through the heart at 10:59. His watch stopped at the same time. The last man to die in World War I was killed 1 minute before peace. He had orders, and he obeyed them. That's how the war ended. Not with glory, not with relief, but with 1 more minute of death. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. On December 24th, 1914, the guns stopped. No one gave the order. No treaty was signed. Just quiet. From one trench, a voice sang, Stille Nacht. Across the frozen earth, another joined in, and then another. Candlelight flickered. Fir trees rose from the mud. Men climbed out of their graves without rifles and walked toward the enemy. They shook hands, traded chocolate, played a game. No one smiled fully. They were too tired, too aware. For one night, they were not soldiers, just human. They buried their dead together, said prayers in different tongues, then watched each other disappear into opposite trenches, knowing what came next, because peace was never meant to last. The next morning, they loaded their rifles again and began killing the men they had called friend the night before. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. On June 18, 1815, the future of Europe hung in the balance as Napoleon Bonaparte faced off against the Duke of Wellington and Prussian General Blücher in the legendary Battle of Waterloo. This monumental clash marked the end of the Napoleonic Wars and the final chapter of Napoleon's storied reign. After his return from exile on the island of Elba, Napoleon, fueled by his unyielding ambition, gathered an army and marched toward the heart of Europe, seeking to regain his dominance. But in the fields of Belgium, a decisive showdown awaited. Napoleon, known for his brilliant tactics, believed in the overwhelming power of his army and his ability to bend the will of his soldiers with sheer force. His psychological strategy centered on his ability to inspire and lead, relying on the loyalty of his men and his ability to break through enemy lines with calculated force. The French Imperial Guard, famed for their discipline and fierce loyalty, marched toward the enemy, with Napoleon in the rear, overseeing the battlefield with a commanding presence. He sought to strike fast and decisively, aiming to divide Wellington's forces and crush the British before the Prussians could join the fight. However, the battle did not unfold as Napoleon envisioned. Wellington, known for his cautious yet steady leadership, held firm behind his defensive positions. Despite the French bombardment, the British infantry, standing in tight, unyielding squares, withstood the onslaught. Their morale remained high, bolstered by Wellington's unshakable presence and leadership. The British soldiers, undeterred by the oncoming storm, maintained their ground, prepared for the inevitable French charge. As the battle progressed, Wellington's resolve was put to the test. Napoleon's cavalry, led by the French cuirassiers, launched a series of heavy charges in an attempt to break the British defenses. But Wellington had anticipated this and had his forces ready to meet the threat. British cavalry, aided by their infantry, fought back fiercely, holding their ground against the might of Napoleon's cavalry. The French were unable to break the British line, and the psychological edge that Napoleon relied on began to slip away. At the height of the battle, Prussian reinforcements, led by General Blücher, arrived at the critical moment, tipping the scales in favor of the British and their allies. The Prussian forces, marching relentlessly through the rain-soaked fields, hit the French right flank with devastating force, surprising Napoleon's weary forces. This was the turning point. The French forces, already fatigued from continuous assault, began to falter under the pressure of two armies. With the arrival of the Prussians, Napoleon's army, already struggling, was caught in a vice. His forces began to collapse, their morale shattered as the hope of victory evaporated. Despite Napoleon's desperate attempts to rally his men, it became clear that the battle was lost. The French began to retreat, and the British and Prussian forces pressed forward relentlessly, sealing the fate of Napoleon and his empire. By the end of the day, Napoleon's dreams of European domination were shattered. The Battle of Waterloo marked the end of his reign, and his final exile to the island of St. Helena was soon secured. The victory of Wellington and Blücher was not just a triumph of military strategy, but also a triumph of resilience, leadership, and psychological fortitude. Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo wasn't just a loss of battle, it was the collapse of an empire built on psychological warfare, strategic brilliance, and the sheer force of will. As Napoleon was led away from the battlefield, his empire crumbled, and Europe breathed a sigh of relief. But the echoes of his impact would resonate for generations to come, as his wars forever altered the political and military landscape of Europe. Delve into history's epic battles and the minds behind them. Subscribe to Mindcraft Dark Psychology. Oskar Schindler, a German businessman, became an unlikely hero during the Holocaust. Initially motivated by profit, Schindler's transformation into a savior of over 1,000 Jewish lives is a story of moral awakening, courage, and psychological warfare. His journey from profiteer to humanitarian is a testament to the power of individual action in the face of overwhelming evil. At the start of World War II, Schindler saw opportunity in the Nazi-controlled territories and established an enamelware factory in Krakow. His initial motivations were purely financial. He sought to exploit Jewish labor to meet the demands of the Nazi war effort. But as Schindler witnessed the horrors of the Nazi regime, including the brutal deportations and massacres of Jews, his priorities began to change. Schindler's own eyes were opened to the reality of the Holocaust, and his ethical and moral compass took a sharp turn. Schindler began using his factory to protect his Jewish workers from being sent to concentration camps. He used bribes and influence to shield his workers, even at great personal cost. He spent his entire fortune, everything he had earned, on bribes, securing the lives of over 1,100 Jewish people who would otherwise have been sent to their deaths. His factory, which had once produced goods for the Nazi war machine, became a place of refuge and hope. Despite the extreme danger Schindler faced, he refused to abandon his workers. His efforts not only saved lives, but demonstrated the power of empathy and resilience in the face of unimaginable evil. Schindler's transformation from a businessman motivated by self-interest to a savior who risked everything for others is one of the greatest examples of human compassion and courage. His legacy, immortalized in Schindler's List, continues to inspire and teach us about the human capacity for good, even in the darkest times. Schindler's story reminds us that one person, driven by the right moral convictions, can make a lasting difference, even when standing up against the greatest forces of oppression. This dark anime rendition of Schindler's journey brings his story to life in a bold, visual style that emphasizes the emotional depth, heroic sacrifice, and the gritty determination Schindler exhibited in his efforts to save lives. Delve into history's epic battles and the minds behind them. Subscribe to Mindcraft Dark Psychology. Oskar Schindler was a German businessman who became an unexpected hero during one of the darkest times in history. At the start of World War II, Schindler was a businessman seeking profit, looking to take advantage of the cheap Jewish labor in Nazi-occupied Poland. He established an enamelware factory in Krakow, employing Jewish workers to produce goods for the Nazi war effort. His initial motivations were selfish, driven by the allure of wealth and the opportunities provided by the Nazi regime. However, as Schindler witnessed the brutality of the Nazis and saw the horrific treatment of Jews, his perspective began to shift. Over time, Schindler transformed from a profiteer to a humanitarian who would risk everything to save as many lives as possible. The turning point came when Schindler realized the full scale of the Nazi genocide and the mass extermination of the Jewish people. As the brutal realities of the Holocaust unfolded before him, Schindler made a decisive choice to use his factory as a refuge for the Jews under his protection. In a series of strategic moves, Schindler bribed Nazi officials and used his influence to keep his workers from being sent to concentration camps. His factory, which once produced war materials for the Nazi regime, became a sanctuary where Jewish people could find safety against all odds. Over time, Schindler would save over 1,200 Jewish lives, each person carefully placed on Schindler's list, a list that would become a symbol of salvation during one of humanity's darkest times. Schindler's actions were not driven by heroism alone, but by an overwhelming moral duty. He risked his wealth, his safety, and his reputation to save those who were deemed expendable by the Nazis. While many might have turned a blind eye, Schindler used his wealth and influence to subvert the Nazi system from within. He took risks that others wouldn't dare to take, paying bribes, using his business connections, and leveraging his status as a member of the Nazi Party to shield his workers from certain death. The cost of Schindler's heroism was high. He spent all of his fortune to save as many Jews as he could. By the end of the war, Schindler was penniless, having sacrificed everything to ensure his workers' safety. He went from being a man focused on profit to a man who understood that some things are far more valuable than wealth, like the lives of others. Schindler's legacy is an example of the power of individual action in the face of unimaginable evil. His actions show that even in the most oppressive systems, one man can make a difference and save lives. Schindler's story proves that humanity and compassion can thrive even in the darkest times. The story of Oskar Schindler remains a beacon of hope and inspiration. His transformation from a Nazi collaborator to a savior of Jewish lives is a testament to the power of courage, integrity, and selflessness. Schindler's legacy lives on through the survivors he saved, their families, and the generations that continue to learn about his incredible actions. Delve into history's epic battles and the minds behind them. Subscribe to Mindcraft Dark Psychology. Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th President of the United States, is remembered as a fierce advocate for American strength, both in domestic policy and on the global stage. His legacy as a military leader is largely defined by his role in the Spanish-American War, his Rough Riders cavalry charge, and his leadership during the early stages of World War I. Roosevelt's story as a wartime leader began long before he became president. In 1898, as the Spanish-American War erupted, Roosevelt, then the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, famously resigned his position to join the fight as the leader of the Rough Riders. His charge up San Juan Hill in Cuba became one of the most iconic military moments in American history. Despite having no prior combat experience, Roosevelt's bravery and strategic foresight earned him national fame, and he returned from the war as a hero, solidifying his political career. During his presidency, 1901 to 1909, Roosevelt further enhanced America's military presence, advocating for the construction of a modern navy and securing the country's position as a rising global power. Though he was not in office during World War I, Roosevelt's influence on military preparedness and his calls for greater American involvement were critical. He openly criticized President Woodrow Wilson's stance of neutrality, urging America to prepare for conflict in order to maintain its standing on the world stage. Roosevelt's personality was larger than life, often described as brimming with boundless energy, ambition, and self-belief. His psychological makeup as a leader, decisive, fearless, and deeply patriotic, guided him throughout his military and political career. He remained an iconic figure of American leadership and was deeply committed to making the U.S. a powerful force for both democracy and peace across the globe. They didn't start with armies, they started with trade, a contract here, a treaty there, and soon, a flag. India, Africa, the Caribbean. It didn't matter where, only that the sun never set on it. They built railroads and banks. They taught English in places that already had languages. They called it duty. Others called it theft. They fought rebellions with silence, and if that failed, with bullets. The red on the map grew. So did the resentment. But empires don't fall with battles. They fall with time. First India, then Africa, then the rest. There was no final war, just embassies where governments used to be, and museum glass where the flags once flew. And when it was over, the people who once ruled a quarter of the world stood in line to watch history under lights that didn't flicker. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. They said it would be over by Christmas. It lasted 4 years and cost the world 20 million lives. This wasn't war. This was mud, wire, gas, and silence. Trenches became homes. No man's land became graves. Bullets became background noise. Boys became bones before they became men. And the only thing louder than the machine guns was the fear. They invented new ways to kill, and no way to leave. Gas that burned the lungs, shells that buried minds, orders that sent thousands to die for 10 yards of dirt, a whistle, a charge, and then nothing. No glory, no songs, just broken bodies, and mothers who stopped hoping for letters. And when it finally ended, they called it the war to end all wars. But we never stopped digging trenches, we just learned how to dig them faster. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. They were told to walk, not run, walk. On July 1st, 1916, at dawn, the British Army rose from the trenches, line by line, shoulder to shoulder, as if they weren't marching into machine guns, but into history. The whistles blew, and the lines advanced. German gunners didn't need to aim, they just pulled the trigger, and watched entire rows collapse. Some men never made it 10 yards, some got further, only to realize they were alone. Command said, "Hold the line," even when the line had become a grave. By the end of day 1, 20,000 were dead. The next day, another line, another whistle, another sacrifice. This wasn't strategy. This was ritual. And when it was all over, the generals said, We have learned something. The only thing the men in lines learned was that dying can be orderly. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. They were 65 men, surrounded by over 2,000, and they did not surrender. On April 30th, 1863, Captain Jean d'Anjou and his French Foreign Legionnaires were escorting a supply convoy in Mexico when the trap closed. They fell back to a crumbling hacienda. No reinforcements, no escape, just sandbags, rifles, and a wooden hand. They could have surrendered. Most men would have. But they were not most men. They were legion. Wave after wave came. Mexican rifles, cavalry, muskets, fire. The legion held. They fought until they ran out of bullets. Then they fought with bayonets, then knives, then fists. Captain d'Anjou died with his hand in the dirt. But his men, they made a promise. We will fight to the death, and we will not lower our flag. At sunset, only 3 legionnaires remained. The enemy commander spared them because they had earned it. And to this day, every legionnaire swears an oath not to win, but to never surrender. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. They were warned. They stayed anyway. In March of 1836, fewer than 200 Texan defenders took shelter in an old Spanish mission. A crumbling shell with no reinforcements and no chance. Outside, General Santa Anna brought over 2,000 men, cannons, cavalry, no mercy. Inside the walls of the Alamo, Colonel Travis drew a line in the dust with his sword. Cross this, if you're ready to die here. Every man stepped forward, even the wounded, even the ones who knew they'd never fire a second shot. They weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to be remembered. For 13 days, the sky above San Antonio was black with smoke. Then, on the final day, the walls fell. They died in doorways, on the chapel floor. One still held the flag when the dust cleared. The enemy took the mission, but they couldn't kill the myth, because sometimes the power to choose how you die is more powerful than how you live. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. Verdun wasn't a battle, it was a sentence. In 1916, Germany planned to bleed France dry, not by winning, but by making them defend to the last man. It worked. For 300 days, the guns never stopped. The ground broke before the line did. Trenches filled with blood. Rats grew fat, and men forgot their names. Soldiers were rotated constantly. But some stayed so long, they forgot there was a world outside the wire. They fought for 10 feet. They died for 5. They charged for nothing. And still, they whispered, "They shall not pass." That wasn't a rallying cry. It was a ritual, a spell spoken by broken jaws and shaking hands. Fortresses fell, cities burned. But the line did not move. When it ended, nothing was gained. Only ghosts remained, buried in mud and steel and silence. Verdun was not a victory. It was survival. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. April 1st, 1945, the Americans landed on Okinawa, and for the first few hours, no one fired a shot. The Japanese weren't gone. They were waiting, in caves, in cliffs, in silence. When the ambush came, it wasn't a battle. It was a bloodletting, banzai charges, landmines, women with grenades, children told, better to die than to live in shame. Marines fought for every yard, in mud, in fire, in screams that never stopped. Civilians jumped from cliffs. Mothers blew themselves up. Some caves were packed with people. And one grenade. There was no front line. There was only ground, and what it cost to take it. By the end, over 200,000 people were dead. The island was taken. But the war changed. Because after Okinawa, the Americans asked one question. If this is what it takes to invade Japan, what would the next island cost? So they chose something worse. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them. Before the war started, the country had already split, North and South, free and slave, one nation, two identities. Abraham Lincoln said it early, a house divided cannot stand. He was right, it didn't. The South seceded. The North refused to let go. And brothers became enemies because the flag meant different things on different porches. Young men marched with pride. Old men spoke of honor. But by the time Bull Run ended, glory was already gone. Shiloh, Antietam, Gettysburg. The names bled into numbers. And the numbers meant nothing. Sherman burned Georgia, Lee surrendered, Lincoln died, and 600,000 never came home. The war ended, but the wounds didn't. They still haven't. Because America didn't fall from the outside, it cracked from within. Follow us at Mindcraft Dark Psychology for more historic battles and the minds behind them.